And I've got 5 p.m. We'll go ahead and call the meeting in order. Ask Commissioner Stewart, if you will, lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Please stand and join us. Again, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity and honor to God to come and serve the citizens of this county. Lord, we just ask that you grant us wisdom tonight to do the business of the county. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. We have several opportunities for you to join us and participate. We have a citizens to be heard at the beginning and one at the end. You can speak on either one of those. You can also speak on each individual agenda item. Please fill out a separate speaker card and give that to Miss Patty here. And when you come up, if you will, give us your name and address so the folks at home can hear you as well. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that tab 6 and tab 19, you both got revised versions of those sent to you.
Yep, and that was posted on the website as well.
That is correct. That's correct.
Yep.
And at one point you wanted to separate tab 19 into two parts.
I think we should.
Well, we'll have to re-advertise it now. Pull it off the agenda and re-advertise it. You do that.
Or proceed as is.
Or proceed as is.
Whatever the will of the board.
I'd proceed as is.
Yeah.
And maybe catch it next time.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
There's no citizens.
No citizens to be heard. Awards and presentation. We'll hear from Ms. Tammy Nason, the new Executive Director of Keep Wakulla County Beautiful.
Presented by Ethel.
Presented by Ethel. Come on down.
Ethel Jefferson, 6250 Coastal Highway, Crawfordville. I am Secretary of Keep Wakulla County Beautiful, and we are so proud to introduce our new Executive Director, Tammy Nason. She's already jumped in feet first and has been doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My name's Tammy Nason. I'm at 50 McAllister Road in Crawfordville. I started the beginning of last month, June 1st, with Keep Wakulla County Beautiful as the new executive director. Since then, I have attended the Keep Florida Beautiful conference, so I learned a lot there. And so far, I have been actively working on the Adopt a Road program. We have really outdated records there, so trying to update that, and also sponsorship and organizing the coastal cleanup that'll be held on Saturday, September 15th. So that's all I have.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve the
Move
consent
consent.
agenda? Have a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. No consent items were pulled. We will move into general business, item number 15.
Yes, item number 15 is a request for the board's approval of an application for reduction in code enforcement liens pertaining to case number CE 2011-94 for property that is located at, I apologize, bear with me, 348 Cooperwood Drive. This application was considered by the Code Enforcement Board last Wednesday evening, who recommended approval. Staff is also recommending approval of this
Move
reduction.
option 1, which is the approval plus the standard 20%.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any citizens? Further discussion from the board? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 16.
This is a request for the board's direction regarding an application for lien reduction pertaining to code enforcement lien case number CE 2017-1621 for property located at 501 Masha Sands Road. Last week, the Code Enforcement Board reviewed this request and voted to recommend denial, and staff is also recommending denial with regard to this request.
Motion to approve the denial option.
Second.
Motion and a second on option 2, correct?
Correct.
All right. Any citizens? Further discussion?
Yes.
We have a citizen?
Yes.
All right, sir, if you will, when you get done, if you'll fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty, but come on up now.
I have some handouts for each of the board members, if I can I bring those to you?
Yes, sir.
Are you the applicant, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I am the owner of 501 Masha Sands, and back in May of last year, I made a mistake and got called on it that I built a small shed building that I didn't know required special permitting. It went into the process, and I made several attempts over the next several months to try to get a DPA permit, and each time was denied. I put together a timeline of relevant events. Bottom line being that finally in January, the Code Enforcement Board basically said that I must demolish the shed for two particular reasons. One was that the slab was a reinforced slab standard with edges reinforced, and they said that there was no way possible that would pass the new FEMA regulations with respect to an on-ground building. And I requested, because I read the FEMA regulations and identified that there was a path to be able to hire a certified a professional engineer from Florida and get him to certify that the slab would be appropriate and not a risk of damaging other buildings under FEMA. I was not allowed to pursue that, and I was told to demolish the shed as of the January 8th Code Enforcement Board meeting, and they set a date of February 9th for demolishing it. In the meantime, then, I hired an attorney and identified a path that wouldn't involve litigation to appeal the decision of the Code Enforcement Board. I went forward with a request for variance to basically get a specific consideration to allow an engineering analysis of the slab and to allow a variance for the 240 square foot building that this shed was. Basically, that request was also denied, even though in good faith there really was no judgment or determination that the engineering route of getting an approval of the engineering design of the building was feasible under the law. So basically, when I was denied initial permits, then denied a waiver of the not a waiver, but the request for variance, I went forward with basically going straight to the building official, because the people at issuing the front end there, that the DPA permits wouldn't allow me forward, and I worked out with Mr. Melvin that the slab was actually fine and the 240 square foot was fine. Both the things that I was told absolute no-go in terms of getting a DPA permit approved at the agency. And the only thing that Mr. Melvin had a particular problem with was that there were T111 siding on the building, and he said if you switch out for lattice, make it a breakaway building, then it was fine. I worked diligently over the next 2 months from...
Sir, let me just warn you, that's our 3 minutes. Do you think you can bring this in?
Yeah, I'm about done. So I worked over the next 2 months. Basically, the shed is in compliance with the exact same slab in place they told me was no way, no how, and with the 240 square feet, but with the lattice changed out. And now they're proposing to charge me $9,850 in fines for the time period between February 9th and when I finally was able to get the compliance achieved. I think that I was denied due process at the beginning of this because I knew it was wrong for them to not allow me to have access to an engineering approval or other routes that the building official actually ultimately did approve with no change. And I worked in in good faith going forward from there to achieve compliance and have the final result make everybody happy at the agency. So I'm requesting a waiver of all the fines. I've also basically I've paid $860 in fees, including the variance request and the initial fine. And I think it's not reasonable because of the mistakes or the kind of inflexibility that was provided to me at the beginning of this process of trying to get a DPA permit and not allowing my application to go forward to the building official, that caused me a lot of additional expense, including hiring a law firm to be able to represent me to have my reasonable rights put forward.
So from the very beginning, you were trying to get this thing solved?
Yes, I can say that I was living in California until January, and I was trying to get my contractor to put forward the DPA permits, but each time he was stopped by them saying, Mr. West and others, saying that there was no way that this slab would be approved. And on the page 3 and 4 of my handout is an exemplary email that before the decision was made on January 8th, on January 3rd, Mr. Smith is telling me that the building official would never approve such a thing. And in fact, I've achieved compliance with exactly that slab in place. So they had to be wrong. And it's really, I feel like I was being bullied at the front end where people weren't allowing me to be heard by the building official who knew what the code and what the requirements were. So I couldn't check all the boxes.
The building official who knew that was Mr. who?
Mr. Melvin.
Mr. Chairman, began as basically an unpermitted improvement. They were issued a stop work order in May of 2017. There was at least 8 months then that they were able to potentially work with the county to try to bring this structure into compliance. That did not occur. It went to the code board in January. That code board order was not appealed. Therefore, it is final, and there was a violation. That is a fact. It was never appealed to circuit court. The applicant did apply for a variance, but that was not denied, that was withdrawn. The applicant withdrew his variance request. The county did not do that. There was no denial of the variance by the county. And then it was then an additional 2 months after that, after the compliance date, where the structure was finally brought into compliance, which in total was about a year after the original stop work order.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Our fine is, what's the total amount of the fine?
Right now, as is detailed in your agenda item, the total amount is $9,850.
What is our cost?
The hard costs in here I don't think are completely accurate because we had some additional hard costs. They're about $1,600, a little bit more than that. But keep in mind, the county has an ordinance on the books that outlines the criteria for when a property owner is eligible to apply for a lien forgiveness on the code enforcement. And when it's the property owner who owned the property at the time of the violation, they have to basically show exigent circumstances as to why they could not timely comply.
I think, the exigent circumstances are that the agency did not allow me to move forward to the building official at the for the first 8 months of my attempts to get a permit. I was denied repeatedly, and tried to understand why it was that the slab as it was would not be allowed. And I went to engineers, Florida professional engineers, and they told me, oh, you know, two different engineers told me, yes, with an engineering a V-zone certification, this building is fine. It's approved under FEMA. And I was told, no way, no how.
That isn't actually accurate because the building is not approved. You did have to make structural changes to the building.
Not the slab.
Well, not the slab, but that's not the total sum of your
But
violation.
the slab
The
is
violation
what-
is an unpermitted
Yeah,
structure.
the slab is what I was told was the reason I would have to demolish this structure, and I would have had to spend thousands of dollars to both take down the structure and demolish the reinforced slab, both of which were unnecessary, and I was told a lie. I was told that it would not be allowed by building codes and or by FEMA regulations, and neither of those was true. There's always a path to be able to hire a professional engineer to be able to identify whether or not a structure is storm resistant, whether it's on the ground or not. And I wasn't allowed to pursue that path. I was told that was not possible, and that just was not true.
The code board order speaks for itself as to the violation, and that is a final order that was not appealed.
Also, James is here.
James, can you shed some light on this? Confirm or deny? If you would, come up to the microphone.
I think the timeline speaks considerably on what we're talking about. The stop order was written by Henry. Mr. Kurger was not around. It's a rental property. It's my understanding that he was in California at the time, had a handyman out there working, that's kind of irrelevant, but he never come to my office until very, very late in this process, and I think y'all know that I've got an open door policy for anybody who wants to come in there and walk and talk about something. When he did finally come in, well, take the walls away from it, make it a carport or something along those lines, and it become FEMA compliant. You can't have, this was all hashed out fairly well in the code board, and Summer's got some summaries of a lot of the bulletins and things like that. There is no pathway to making something that's outlawed under the building code. It's a violation of FEMA regulations to get an engineer to make a magic wand and it's okay. I think an example of that would be when the state wanted to build bathrooms at Ocklawackney River Park and they weren't allowed to build them under their own guidelines. It's like, not saying that it wouldn't be a good thing, but an engineer couldn't build bathrooms that would be allowable on the ground. So,
Flood zone.
yeah, it's like I said, it's the whole thing with the slab. There's a whole lot of regulations dealing with slabs in V zones, which this is a V zone. Would erosion in this particular scenario be a problem? Probably not, but it's still frangible slabs under structures, or they're prohibited in flood zones. There's a lot of issues. The only pathway for him, short of tearing the whole thing down, was to just take the walls away from it, call it a carport. You can't build a garage in a V zone. You know, if it's under the house, you can do breakaway walls, but if it's outside the footprint of the house, you cannot have accessory structures of different types. You can have small, what's called low-cost disposable sheds and structures, but pretty much anything else is prohibited. Do you have any questions on anything else I could elaborate on?
So, make sure I understand, typically when you want to build a structure, the first step is to come in with what you want to build and have that approved. In this case, it's probably need to be approved by an engineer. Is that right?
In a V zone, we're supposed to get engineering for everything that's done, and they ask us for that engineering when you come in. But first step in the process is getting the DPA through planning and zoning,
Right.
and what he wanted to do would not be allowed.
And
So he was rightfully denied.
And that's where I'm at, sir, is that I think you tried to get forgiveness rather than permission in this case. You got the cart ahead of the horse, you built the structure, and then you come and hope that somebody would wave that wand over and say it was okay. We can't do business like that. I mean, if we do, then we'll have hodgepodge, all kind of structures that don't meet code, and that's why we do what we do. So,
It's a moot issue because it's in compliance the way it is.
well,
Okay,
finally,
so-
yes, but only,
And I made a mistake, I acknowledge that. I mean, how much punishment is really necessary?
but you had 8 months to find some sort of middle ground there, and I think you didn't do that, from what I understand.
Well, because I wasn't allowed to follow what the FEMA regulations and the building code allowed me to do. They said that they wouldn't accept an engineering analysis. And so I had to fight for my rights. I had to press the issue, and it finally came through. And it was, I was right, because that building is there and it's in full compliance now. In fact, the affidavit of compliance says that I've complied with all of the requirements, including paying the fines. And now, after the fact, they're saying that I've owed $10,000. And I was working in, both from February 9th until the permit was finally issued in March. I was fighting for my due process to consider that I could provide an engineering analysis. I indeed did provide an engineering analysis. It was presented to the commission, the Planning Commission, by my attorney in March. And then
he was never denied his due process, correct?
Not in my opinion, no. I mean, the stop work order was in May of 2017. He went to the code board in January. He says that from February 9th on, he started to work towards compliance. But if he had legal issues that he wanted to raise with regard to the code board order, the proper process would have been to appeal that code board order, and that was not done.
And Summer, he understood that up front, that he needed to appeal that process.
That is laid out in the order of the code board.
Okay.
So basically, he had Mr. Maury as his attorney. What was the result of that?
They didn't appeal. They filed an application to get a variance that they later withdrew. I don't know what else has gone on with Mr. Maury.
Okay, so basically, they filed with Mr. Maury, but they did not appeal the decision of the code board, is that correct?
They did not.
I'll fix and make a motion for, call the question.
We have a motion. I think we're probably about ready to wrap it up. Sort of the problem that I have, the dilemma that we're in right now, we have a mechanism to allow the forgiveness, but you don't meet the requirements. And so for us, we would have to just arbitrarily set that aside and say that those rules don't apply and those rules don't matter. And nothing in that ordinance really gives us the authority to do that. We have to just kind of, I guess we could do it, but I don't see that it's the right thing to do, because it's not a standard format that's in our ordinance right now.
that ordinance was not actually put into place until after the February 9th date.
The only
And I was
difference it made was the 20%. It made the difference. We changed it so it's cost plus 20%.
It made requirements for the county attorney to approve if there was a legal deficiency argument also, which is critical here. And what I'm saying is I was not allowed the due process under the regulation. I don't think I should have to be filing in circuit court to undo an unfair decision that a regulator made, and where they wouldn't give me access to move forward with an engineering analysis. I don't think that's fair or appropriate. I don't think I should be penalized $100 a day for, in good faith, moving forward with the things that I knew from reading the regulations and advising with experts who knew the FEMA regulations that was the right thing to do.
Right.
I wanted to bring it into compliance, not to just fight.
And you admitted that you made a mistake, so I'm certainly not trying to bang on that, but the awareness of what you knew when you knew it. Had you known it before you made the permit, then we wouldn't even be having this question. You would have had it in the right order from the very beginning, and we wouldn't be in a situation where we now have to set the ordinance aside in order to approve your request. I just don't see that there's a mechanism to do so.
If we set aside the ordinance, then how do we enforce any others?
Right.
So.
It puts us in a bad situation where might as well get rid of the ordinance if we're not going to be fair and consistent across the board with it.
But then when does the ordinance really apply? I mean, the order was on January 8th before the ordinance came into effect.
All right.
It applies. You applied for forgiveness after the fact.
But I couldn't have possibly applied for forgiveness until it was brought into compliance, and it was that issue the legal deficiency issue I'm mentioning that required that delay.
So what's his recourse if he doesn't like our decision tonight?
I don't believe he has any recourse. I mean, you guys don't have to forgive any code fines. The fact that you have a mechanism that offers some leniency is within your discretion.
I mean, it's reasonable to do their hard cost plus 20%. I don't see any reason why I should be forced to pay $10,000 when I was working in good faith towards getting compliance, and I achieved compliance under the conditions I just described, that it was what I originally had in place.
All right, I'm going to ask, do we have any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I'm sorry we could not grant your request, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. We will move into public hearing, item number 17.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is request board approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt the ordinance extending the county's existing 4-cent per gallon local option fuel tax on motor fuel.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any citizens? Further discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 18.
Item 18, let me make sure got a couple here. Yes. This agenda item requests board approval to conduct a public hearing and approve the property exchange between the county and Wild Construction Incorporated.
Approve the Nick Wild agreement.
Second.
Was that a motion?
That was a motion to approve it.
And
Correct.
second. Any citizens on that? Further discussion?
I think, I just have a little bit of trouble with the price variation between that parcel and our parcel. I mean, we want to make this change, but it just seems...
He's paying us, right?
He's paying us
But ours is
$1,000 plus.
Ours is worth considerably more.
A single lot.
Single lot, it was sold for $8,000.
That ain't worth $8,000.
Not today.
I got a couple I'll say if they're worth that much.
Okay.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Next, we'll go into item 19.
Item 19 is requesting board approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance relating to boating and skiing on Lake Ellen, the Lake Ellen Drive water access area, and swimming at county parks and facilities. This is an ordinance that was brought forward to previous board direction. What this does is it repeals section 21.003 of the code, which is the previous restrictions on boating and skiing from the Lake Ellen right-of-way. It repeals section 21.004 of the code, entitled Swimming or Sunbathing on Certain Public Property Prohibited. It amends section 23.003 of the code, and then amends, that's just definitions, and then it creates a new section of the code entitled Swimming at County Parks and County Facilities that incorporate some additional requirements, some additional warnings, some swim at your own risk language, but also repeals the previous prohibition on swimming within 50 feet of any county dock or boat launching facility. Finally, this creates a new section of the county code to be entitled the Lake Ellen Drive Water Access Area. This is an area that will allow now for boating activities to be conducted from the end of the county's right-of-way there. It does put a limitation on the horsepower of a motor that can be launched there to 25 and prohibits any personal watercraft such as jet skis or water scooters to be launched from there.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recusing myself from this item because I own property that could be affected by it around the lake.
So do I. I'm a property owner on the lake.
You both filled out your cards.
Additionally, the correct ordinance was advertised in your original agenda. The previous version before you guys had acted to remove the swimming prohibition was included. That is not the version that was advertised, and as soon as staff recognized that the wrong version was just uploaded, that has been corrected. You do have a few emails, I believe, from interested property owners, Mr. Foltz, that he asked to be brought into the record, and those have been done so by reference.
Even the
here.
one that was about 4:30 this afternoon? Has that
Well,
been?
I can't print that out, so we'll just have to move it into the record by reference, and then it'll get printed out and provided later.
Very good.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Thank you. So,
Do we have any lunches that are not motorized? Are there any?
Well, this is not a non-motorized launch. If they can get a motorized boat in there, they can. This just has a limit on the size of the motor.
There's one at the Pan Steel Welcome Center, Jerry. It's unmotorized kayak launch.
I move that we, for option 1, approve to conduct a public hearing and adopt the ordinance related to boating and skiing on Lake Ellen, the Lake Ellen Drive water access area, and swimming at county parks and facilities.
do we have a second?
Jerry, you're the only one that can second it.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We have a couple of citizens. Mr. Max Campbell.
My name is Max Campbell, 2431 Sock Chopper Highway. Been here all my life. I'm 71 years old, and I'm here to tell y'all that I'm not giving up my right for none of this stuff. That them waterways, I don't care if it's enclosed by that lake or whatever. I've used that ramp down there for I know 65 years, and I think y'all need to back up and look at your oath of office, because you're supposed to, be looking after me and all these other folks in here that's private citizens. And, y'all supposed to provide a public access to that lake or any waterway. And another thing mad about is that Wakulla, swimming in Wakulla River. I swim there all my life. And, that ain't right that I can't even go swimming up there now. And not that I did all that much swimming, but I did used to fish for mullet up there. And it's a shame that y'all closed down public access to a waterway. That water belongs to the people. It don't belong to Wakulla County. It belongs to the people of Wakulla County. And people should be standing up for their right and not giving up their right to these things. And anyway, I got y'all some case law on this, what I just said, and it'd be, I just give it to y'all?
Sir.
Give it to me, I'll give it to you.
And while you passing that out, let me make sure you understand the motion is to open up access and open up swimming. So it sounds like we're on the same page.
Just to be clear, the county did not close that boat ramp, the property owner did.
Right.
County did not close that.
Well, y'all shouldn't allow him to close that because that ramp was there before they was ever making a subdivision in there.
Trust me, we've hashed that out at length.
And,
We have not closed that ramp. That ramp is open.
and I guarantee you, if y'all give me permission, I'll take a few people down there and take that fence up. Because I ain't scared to fella myself. He ain't got enough money to keep me off that lake.
You have every access to that lake today, tomorrow, and forever, according to what we're doing here tonight.
Okay, well, I thank you for that.
You bet.
I thank you for holding your oath to the
Now,
people.
you just can't swim within 50 feet of that.
Well, actually, you're
Landon.
proposing to repeal that.
After tonight, that'll be gone.
That'll be gone. So you can swim, just watch out for the boats.
That's good, thank
Yeah.
you.
When you go swimming, call me.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. David Damon.
I think you finally understand.
David Damon, Crawfordville. One thing I'd add to this, and I'm kind of on the same page with you guys on that, and I hear a lot of people talking about the safety issue with people swimming around the boat ramp, but hopefully a little bit of good old common sense will kick in, and they'll know not to swim right there when the boats are coming and vice versa. And I think one thing we have to recognize is a lot of these areas have very limited space, and if you keep it the way it is, then there is no swimming anywhere in a lot of these areas. It'll just rule out swimming. And the swimming, I think, there's a lot more of that than there is boat traffic. And I think of all those kids down at Lake Ellen, at the end of the day, going down there and going swimming and hanging out. So I actually support this, but one thing I would suggest is that within a certain number of feet of a boat ramp, that you limit the boat activity. I know they have to get to the ramp, but there should be something there slowing them down, and I don't know if y'all have addressed this, but for instance, somebody pointed out to me about people, if they were skiing, and I know you're thinking, well, 25 horsepower, but you can ski behind the 25 horsepower, or you can pull a float, or you can do that kind of thing. And they're going to want to come swinging in there to drop people off. And I think there needs to be a distance out with a no-wake zone, whether it's 100 yards or something like that. And I think the same thing at Shell Point Beach is a good idea. And maybe even have, floats out there, buoys, so that people can see that that's a no-wake area. So when they come up to that area, and it also defines it as a swimming area right there, I think a lot better. So anyway, I would suggest taking it a little bit further. I think you're on the right track here, but look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to bring up two things. At our last meeting, I mentioned including some language in there that establishes right-of-way. I think that would be important for law enforcement. I can picture a family setting up with their lawn chairs and they're covering the boat ramp, and they could tell a boater, well, we were here first. We don't have any reason to move. But we need to establish the fact that boats, trailers, vehicles backing down, and boats approaching from the water have the right-of-way, and right now we've got a second-degree misdemeanor for someone swimming in there. We can keep that same second-degree misdemeanor for someone who fails to yield the right-of-way. I'm all about the swimming in that area, but we need the swimmers and pedestrians, waiters, anyone to yield the right-of-way when there's vehicle traffic there, and we need to have a mechanism for law enforcement to be able to prioritize and say, no, they're backing down, so you need to exit the water and give them the right-of-way. I'd like to see that added. And then also on page 3 of the ordinance, section 23011, it talks about the length of the area that we're talking about. And it says about 100 feet in length from the water's edge of Lake Ellen and then south to the county installed signage. Now, the public right-of-way actually extends into the water, extends beyond the water's edge. So I think we need to just change that language to encompass the entire public area. So the area that's identified on the plat that was recorded in 1963 is the public right-of-way area, and it needs to include that entire public right-of-way and not just to the water's edge. Because we don't want a situation where someone says, well, you can come to the water's edge, but you can't step over it. As long as they're within that public right-of-way, they have full right to be there. So I would like to see those
instead of from the water's edge, you want it from the northern terminus of the county's platted right-of-way.
Correct.
And then south to wherever the county is going to install its sign.
To the signage.
Yeah. On the right-of-way language, unless you have something, and you guys did bring that up, but you guys didn't vote on it, so this ordinance was already in the process of coming forward without the additional changes that had been discussed at the last meeting. If you guys want, if you're real clear on what that language is, we could probably include that by amendment, but if not, it's probably something we should bring back and
if it would be
hash out.
cleaner, I would say let's approve this as it is tonight, and we could bring that back as an amendment at the next one. That way we have time to advertise with the public.
Okay.
We want people to see that. I've had people that say, Ralph, you want people swimming with boat props? Well, that's just ridiculous. I don't want people crossing the traffic when there's cars coming either, but we do it each and every day. So there's no reason we can't coexist. There's times where there might not be a boat past that ramp for 12 hours. There's no reason someone can't wait out there and cool off in the summertime. So I'd be glad to support this tonight and bring that back with the right-of-way language at a future meeting.
If you're going to bring this back, could we put in some language that prevents water skiing being based out of that location? Okay, because, when you're growing up on a river, we would take a spot, and that's where you dumped your skier off, and that's where you made the exchange. And when you dump your skier off, you're going to zoom in close, and somebody underwater will not even know you're coming. Okay, they can't get out of the way because they don't have time. So you need to have that there's no skiing coming from the ramp. Okay, so there's no boats zooming in at high speed. So there's some kind of protection around the ramp in the swimming area where boats are going at 5 miles per hour, no wake zones. Okay, so there are no boats zooming through because,
are you talking?
I had a friend of mine kill somebody just that way, coming in and hitting somebody underwater, and they never even knew they were there.
So are you talking specific Lake Ellen or all boat ramps? 'Cause
I think it's all boat ramps.
most boat ramps really,
of our boat
really
ramps
aren't
upper-
conducive to skiing like
That's
you,
right.
like you've
Okay,
described.
so, but if you have a no skiing from boat ramps, most boat ramps, it won't affect at all. Lake Ellen happens to be one that would be affected, and there might be others, but you shouldn't have skiing taking place where you have swimming, because the boats are going too fast
Yeah.
to really notice somebody in the water, and the
Yeah.
person in the water can't move fast enough.
They don't
So
have
those-
water skiing in Smith Creek, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
So,
that's
so
a-
how
that's an
would
issue.
that language look? No skiing from or to the boat ramp?
No skiing from or to the boat ramp. There's no way, you know, you're just-
Separation
You're
distance?
saying just make
How about you put that as
Skiing around
within
boat ramps, no
150
way.
feet of the ramp?
I'm good with that.
No
Just- I
wake
just
and no
don't want-
skiing within 50 feet of boat ramp?
Chuck's only making a suggestion, he can't vote
You
on it.
probably
vote
need
on it.
100 feet. This is just 50. Probably need 100.
I mean, 50 would be fine, wouldn't it?
About just idle speed.
Idle speed.
Yeah, or no wake is common language though.
Yeah, no wake within 100 feet of the boat ramp.
Okay. Because
Okay.
you can't ski in a no wake zone
You can't.
unless you're breaking the no wake zone. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Sounds good.
So we'll bring both of those two items back and move forward with this tonight.
But just for clarification then, the one change to amend the Lake Ellen water access area is something that could be done tonight if
Right.
the motion makers want to make that
I'll
amendment.
include that in the motion, that amendment.
To the northern point is where that.
So it would be that area would be defined as the northern terminus of the county's platted right-of-way for Lake Ellen Drive, and then south to the county sign. And I don't know how long that will be, but
Yeah, we're both
Sounds
fine
good.
with it.
Motion and second are good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll revise that.
One thing, currently at all of our boat ramps, we have a idle zone
Mm-hmm.
that we've permitted through FWC and, excuse me, through FWC. So we would really just need to add in Lake Ellen to that, if you wanted to do that. That would be specific to that.
We want to list,
Yeah, you can include all of them, but just let you know, that's already on all the rest of them.
so is this something that you have good, clear direction, or is it something I need to craft the language and bring that to you for the,
no, I think, I
Right
mean,
away.
I think I understand what you want, and we'll draft something, and that will come back to you guys to get authority to advertise, and at that point, if you guys want to tweak it, you guys can let us
Perfect.
know.
Perfect. Very good. Further discussion from the board?
But just, I want to make sure the public, especially Mr. Campbell, that you understand, but if we approve this tonight, which I suspect we will, you're going to be able to access all that, and including Lake Ellen, all of our boat ramps, and fish, and swim. We're not,
Somebody's got to pay for
got to
it.
pay for it, so.
No promise on that. Personally, I'd rather have the people that use it be the ones that are bearing the cost of it. The people that don't use it, never paying that $5 fee, to me, that's a fair system. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next, we'll go to item number 20.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to file an application to close and abandon a portion of Harry Morrison Road in the Evergreen
Just an
Acres
item.
subdivision.
Yep, that's 21.
Oh,
20,
item
I
20.
apologize. I'm moving too fast.
Everybody makes mistakes.
This is a request for the board's approval to conduct a public hearing and approve the designation of the old Wakulla County Courthouse as a historic building
to approve.
on the local register.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion?
Did we ever get the mullet back up? Do we know?
I think they're still working it.
They're still working at it.
Yeah.
You ever crawled up there in that cupola up top?
I sure have, as a kid.
I did it as an adult.
All right, do we have any further discussion? Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passes 5-0. Now, item 21.
Now we'll request the board's approval for filing an application to close and abandon a portion of Harry Morrison Road, which lies in the Evergreen Acres subdivision. This portion lies between lots 1 through 4 of Block A and lots 1 and 2 of Block B of said subdivision. Several years back, the board did vote to approve the westernmost portion of Harry Morrison Road for closure.
Motion to approve, and, I talked to staff earlier about this. This is just to move forward.
I've got to recuse myself, but I'd like to go into discussion on this.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We have one citizen, Mr. Ralph Meadows.
Yeah, I'm Ralph Meadows, 3291 Crawfordville Highway. I'm the one requesting this, and I'm just here if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, sir.
He owns all 4 lots, right, that are platted, right?
Yes, that's
It
correct.
only affects his
Only
property.
affects his property.
There you go.
The only thing I asked Summer, and I talked to David and Summer about this at length, is want to be sure we don't want to reserve an easement or something, not in the middle of the property, but up close to a road, just in case we ever need some utility of some sort. Because once we give it away, you're never getting it back.
That would make sense.
And they're going to
though,
look into that. If they feel we don't need it, then fine.
But
It's
we
fine.
can't get all the way to 319.
No, no.
Because that part's already
That's
been
right.
closed.
That's right.
Good point.
Now's the time to take a real hard look at it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Meadows? Thank you, sir.
All right.
What I have there is a company has approached me to put this building and structure on 3 of the lots there. And it's important to them that they maintain that access to the back portion of Harry Morrison Road. That has never been closed. It's always been open, and it is a current road that we have there. When they put that building in there, they're going to have a lot of trucks and semis coming into this facility, and they'll not be able, the state will close off that first access when they do that intersection, and they'll not be able to make a left going out. So this remaining open on at least the back side of my property, the access is my property, and I use that access. So, but it's equally important for the trucks and so forth to be able to go out the back and come back into the light to get back out on 319. But it hasn't been closed.
This would force commercial traffic through Walmart, through the Walmart drive.
It would put traffic into Mike Stewart Boulevard.
Right.
But the trucks coming into that property have no other way out, really, as far as a full access. The light gives the trucks the full access, and to get to the light, they've got to be able to go out that current access. That's a current road, and it ties into my property.
Right.
And I don't want to give it up.
But as it stands now, we wouldn't normally force commercial traffic through a residential area to get to that.
It won't be residential. That is not, it may be over here, but all this will be, Mr. Meadows will use all this as commercial at some point. That's totally not residential property today.
Well, these are good points, but the motion right now is just to move forward with bringing it back, right?
That's correct.
And I would
For
certainly
the
get with-
applicant to file the
If
application.
his interests are infected, because when I looked at this, we said nobody's access will be affected, but I'd like y'all to look at Jerry's concern. You know, it is a current public road.
He closed his version of it.
I understand.
So.
But again, we're just here to look to say,
No decision is made tonight.
No.
It's just to move forward with the application to close it. All right. We have a motion and a second. Do we have? And you said you're going to recuse yourself and fill out the form with Kelly. Do we have any further discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. That takes us to item number 22.
This is a request for a change of zoning, sorry, Heather, R1804.
Thanks. In accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, each commission member needs to disclose any contact they may have received from interested parties, representatives, or lobbyists regarding this application. Commissioner Stewart?
I was contacted by the applicant, but I didn't speak to him.
I too was contacted by them.
I spoke to the applicant.
I was contacted by the applicant, but didn't get a chance to speak with him.
I spoke to the applicant and staff.
Okay. If there's anyone here who's going to provide any information on the application, including the applicant, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All
This
right.
change of zoning requests approval on a 5.25 acre parcel located at 204 and 210 Shadeville Road.
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any citizens? You gonna speak as a citizen? All right, you're welcome to
Do
speak.
they need to get sworn in, Heather, or no?
Yep. Please stand to be sworn in.
Anybody that's going to talk on this item, you need to be sworn in. Anybody.
Just hold your hand up.
Hold your hand
I didn't
up.
know if your wife was going to do it too.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, sir. If you'd like to speak, go ahead and speak now, but fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty when you get done, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. My name is Ronnie Black. I live at 234 Dogwood Drive. This property backs up to mine. I don't know what a R1804 means. It was when we bought the property that we're on, we were told it's all going to be residential. So I assume R3 is residential? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
All right, so what is the R1804 going to be? That the guy wants to change it to?
That stands for rezoning in 2018, the number 4th one of the year. That's just the application number.
All right, so what does R3 to HIC mean?
HIC is the high-intensity commercial, and Summer, you can explain what that
That's
is.
correct. Yes, this is a high-intensity commercial zoning district designed to fall into the Crawfordville Town Plan area.
So they're going to demolish all that property all the way to mine so I can look at an office building?
A site plan has not submitted. This is simply just the rezoning stage of the development. If the zoning is approved, then the applicant will have to submit a site plan demonstrating their plans for development of the site.
Would that include the entrance and exiting also?
That's correct. Traffic circulation will be reviewed as part of that plan.
And sir, also, our county landscape ordinance has a specific provision when you're separating non-compatible uses like residential, commercial, there's extra buffers that have to be put between the two uses. So he can't just
Correct.
clear up to his property line and stick an office there.
And would require fencing as well as landscaping to isolate.
How much is the
between
buffer he would take place?
It all depends on what use he does.
Right.
don't
Well, and also, we would determine that through site plan. The landscape ordinance has a couple of variations that could range from a 50-foot natural undisturbed buffer as small as a 10-foot wide landscape buffer with an 8-foot opaque fence.
Okay, that was my biggest concern. If they start developing it, how's it going to affect my property?
Yes, sir. If I was you, I would get on the county's email list and make sure that when the site plan goes in, that you just pay attention to that, and we'll make sure that the applicant complies with our site plan requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming. Further discussion? Hear none. All in favor? Oh, more discussion?
I'm just, this is the only bite we get at this apple, and so I'm concerned about having something there that's, we've already been trying to move our high industrial type activities away from the county property, and I'm hoping that we can make sure that that type of activity is not going to come here, because the people there on the Talon Drive development are already experiencing problems. So
When they built that subdivision, it was next to Public Works, by the way, that was
yeah,
already
I
there.
understand that, but now we're adding stuff to that subdivision, and it was residential before. So
This is very much consistent with the town plan.
it's consistent with the town plan, so I tend to want to
I know you're a
support
fan
the
of the town plan.
So
Fan of the plan.
Yes, sir. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. All right, that ends our planning and zoning items, commissioner agenda items. We will start out with mine. I have been asked by the EDC, Economic Development Council, if we will hold a workshop on August 6th at 3 p.m. To hear an update regarding Opportunity Park.
I'll make the motion for you, Mr. Thomas,
Thank
since
you,
you're not
sir.
allowed to make a motion.
I appreciate
I'll second
that.
it.
We have a motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion? Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, Commissioner Merritt.
This item, as you know, the BMAP, which is the Basin Management Action Plan DEP put together for Wakulla Springs Basin to protect the springs was supposed to go into effect July 1st. It's been delayed, I think, about 6 months, or however long it is. I actually brought back, when we first had the, a little bit of history, when we first had the performance-based septic tank requirement, it was every septic tank in the county. That made no sense whatsoever. I suggested, and the board agreed, and we revised it to what we have today, which is if you're on less than 5 acres in the springs protection zone, you got to have one, or if you're on anything smaller than a 50 by 100 lot, you got to have one. The BMAP, their recommendation is, and that was completely arbitrary, by the way. There was no scientific study to say, here's the amount of acreage you need to offset your nitrogen contribution. That was just arbitrary. As was making everybody do it was arbitrary. So now the state has come back, they run their computer models, their analysis, their conclusion is to protect the springs, it needs to be anything less than 1 acre, but over a much larger area. Not only the springs protection area, but also a large area south, I think, all the way to Spring Creek, which would be basically
Not a much larger area. It is a larger area, but not a much
significantly larger area. Is that
Actually
appropriate?
goes all the way to the Georgia line, so.
Yeah,
Goes
and they added Leon County in too.
Well, that's a different.
Yeah.
So, my suggestion is that we change our septic tank ordinance, basically get rid of it, that's in the comp plan, and let's just go with what the state's going to enforce anyway. Now, theirs is stricter in the sense that it's a larger area, a significantly larger area, and another big difference is they don't allow repairs and modifications. Right now, we do. So, this is going to be a big problem in the future when you have a person on fixed income come in and what would be a $1,200 repair, the drain field is now going to be a $12,000 replacement. Hopefully the state will step in and help pay for that, but we don't know that. So my recommendation is to direct staff to bring back a comp plan amendment to basically remove all of our special Wakulla County nitrogen reduction. And by the way, our ordinance says that you have to have a performance-based system that meets 10 milligrams per liter. I'll stop in just a second, Jerry. Whereas the BMAP says nitrogen reduction, I think it's a percent reduction, Chuck, 60-something percent, whatever it is. Right. And they also have a passive option, which we don't allow. Now, turns out that's probably not going to be the greatest thing in the world, but we don't know that. But we don't allow the passive option. So my motion...
But it locks them in with only a performance basis.
Only performance
follow
based.
what we
That's
have on the
right.
books
And
now.
my goal would be to have, you don't have to have an engineer involved, you don't have to have a maintenance contract, you don't have to have a maintenance entity, and you don't have to have an operating permit. But that can only happen with a passive system. And I say this as an engineer, and I verify with the health department, I do probably 95% of these performance-based systems in the county. I make money doing it. So by what I suggested, I'm actually going to lose money. But anyway, that's my motion. It's direct staff to bring back comp plan amendment and get rid of our special requirements.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We have a couple of citizens. Mr. Eugene Watkins.
Eugene Watkins, 35 Rough Cut Road. My main concern here is that we don't add more nitrates to our water system and affect Wakulla Springs. We made some good progress in protecting Wakulla Springs when we asked the residents of Wakulla Gardens and Magnolia Gardens to pay a monthly fee to reduce the nitrates going into water. So it's only fair that when new residents move into our county, that they contribute to springs protection by installing, the more advanced septic systems. We've made progress and less nitrates are going in. Now we're just going to turn around and put, we want to be careful we don't turn around and have septic systems going in that are just going to add those nitrates right back in. That's taxpayers. We're paying a lot of money to correct these septic systems. We're paying a lot of money to get sewer houses connected to sewer. I wonder why we can't put something in, maybe add it to this, that houses have to be connected to a city sewer system. But anyways, I hate to see us move backwards. So please do not remove the requirement for performance-based systems. Thank you.
And Summer, correct me if I'm wrong, we do have the requirement that if there's sewer available, you have to hook onto it.
That's correct.
Period. Amen, the end.
Mm-hmm. You're correct.
The state law, actually, yeah.
Mr. David Damon.
David Damon, Crawfordville. You know, one thing, we always want to take control of our own destiny as a county and not have the state control things. And I hear that when it's convenient, but when it's convenient for the state to take charge, then we turn it over to the state. We saw it with the wetlands, let the state do it. They've got it covered. Well, it all got watered down, and this sounds like this is going to get watered down too. We have a really special place in Wakulla Springs. I mean, Taylor County doesn't have a Wakulla Springs. Franklin County, Leon County, nobody has a Wakulla Springs. This is the goose that laid the golden egg for our county. So to do anything that would increase nitrates in that area, I think is a big mistake. And going back to the state, we're seeing it on a national level. We're seeing how environmental protections have been rolled back, destroyed, all in an effort to improve the economy. Well, we've thrown the environment under the bus. We've done it on the national scale, and we've done it on the state scale. Our generation was supposed to be better about that kind of thing, and it looks to me like we're worse. We didn't learn from our parents and all the damage they did, all the degradation of the wetlands, and all the environmental issues are getting worse. And it's all about greed. It's all about money. That's what it boils down to. Anytime you roll back environmental protections, it's all about money. And it's usually about developers and developments so that they can get more houses in there cheaper and pocket the money, and then the rest of us are stuck picking up the bill 20 years from now. Our children will be dealing with this because we're rolling things back. And I think that's a big mistake. We're going backwards. So I think we need to be, this is a slippery slope. And how much money do you need? What's it worth to you to throw the environment away? What are you going to leave your kids and your grandkids? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dad was a beekeeper. He didn't pollute anything.
Mr. McClin, is that right? Sean McGlynn.
Sean McGlynn, Beverly Court, Tallahassee, Florida. I'm the director of the Wakulla Springs Alliance, and that guy just said it quite, you have a wonderful, I mean, the world-class springs here. That we have people coming from 52 countries this month alone to visit that spring. Sometimes your laws are better than the BMAP. I mean, the 5 acres standard to 1, you're just going to increase the nutrients by a factor of 5 going to Wakulla Springs. You're increasing the number of septic tanks, and basically we're trying to get rid of them. This is a step backwards. And we're in a hole. We're trying to clean up Wakulla Springs. It's not quite there yet. There's still algae in the springs. It's still dark most of the time. It's getting a lot better. We spent $230 million on the Tallahassee spray field to improve the springs. There's all kinds of projects replacing septic tanks with sewer right now. It's paid for with the $50 million the governor's giving to first order springs only. And that's coming next year. We haven't spent that yet. We should be doing better projects, not going backwards. The fact that you're better than the BMAP means that you are better, and you are protecting the springs more than the state is requiring you. Please don't take a step backwards. This would increase the nutrients by 5. This would add more septic tanks and more bad development. We've got 17,000 that we really need to get rid of at the moment. If you're in a hole, don't dig it deeper. Help us get out and help us really preserve this spring for our kids in the future, because they're the ones that be paying for money now that you'll make on selling more septic tanks per every acre. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ken Gooding.
Thank you, gentlemen. I wasn't going to speak tonight until I hear everything's in opposition for this. I just bought a home, you know. So you're saying that my home that I bought that was fine, if I have septic problems, I now have to put 1. I now have to put 2 because I have 2 septic tanks.
The state is saying that, not us.
Okay.
If you're less than 1 acre. If you're point
we're over 1 acre.
Anything, right? Any septic tank, the state that fails, I'm sorry, the state is saying you got to upgrade it.
If it fails, yeah, not new construction, yes.
Correct.
But you're saying the state says that for under 1 acre.
Let me be clear.
I am over 1 acre.
The state is saying.
Yeah.
If you have not built your house yet, you go to build a house under the state rule. If you have more than 1 acre, you can put in a regular septic tank. If you have 20 acres and your septic tank needs to be fixed, you cannot fix it. You have to upgrade it to a performance space.
Even if it's a minor repair, if it
Correct.
requires a permit, you're going to have to replace it with a
State rule.
nitrogen reducing system.
County rule allows you to repair it, but the state rule is going to override that.
Correct.
Will the state override the performance base that you're talking about tonight?
No. Requiring a performance space is more, he was exactly right, is more stringent than what the BMAP requires.
Yeah. We're trying to move away from having to have the performance-based tank.
Right.
No.
And there's a lot more experts out here on this stuff than me, but my thing is if I already own property over 1 acre, why am I going to be penalized just because I have a failed drain field, I can't repair it?
Well, we have a commitment, not in writing, but we have been told by DEP that this BMAP implementation is for every county that has springs, first magnitude springs and spring sheds. But Wakulla County is the hardest hit. We have the most stringent requirements because of our spring here.
Right.
So we've been told that DEP is going to help offset the cost between a traditional system and a performance base. Hopefully that will come about. That certainly is not in writing, but I heard them say it myself in meetings that I've attended. And so I know the county administrator has as well. So we'll continue to try to help that. I mean, I believe that if it's good for everyone, then everyone should pay the price, and not just the one or two that are going to be affected by it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion.
Okay, you're talking about letting the cat out of the bag, and it's going to be really hard to get back in. We have a problem, as we have 12,000 in South Leon and in northern Wakulla. We have 12,000 septic tanks we've got to get off the system. Every one of these tanks you're talking about get added to that number. At some point in 20 years from now, those have to be taken off, put on a performance-based septic tank or put in sewer. So it costs about $22,000 each to put a septic tank on sewer. We can't afford that. We will not be able to afford that. So we're going to be dependent on the state to help it out if we want to clean up Wakulla Springs. And so we're creating a bigger problem down the road. So we're taking our profits right now and kicking it down the road. We're kicking the can down the road. We need to address it now, and we have by putting the 5-acre minimum for a standard septic tank. Because a standard septic tank at 5 acres, that's the best solution right there. But if you get less than 5 acres, we need to go to the performance base so we don't have so many densities.
Do you have any sort of math to tell you that the 5 acres is the magic number?
No, but it's 25. It's basically.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, the 5 acres, a 1 acre parcel, a standard septic tank puts in 25 times the nitrogen into the system as a reducing septic.
How many tanks do you have in Wakulla now? You said there were 12,000 in South Leon and Wakulla. How many are in Wakulla?
I didn't look up the specific number. I just looked at the number in the...
Basically, if you put in a performance base, if you put in a regular approved septic tank today, how much nitrogen is going to come off that septic tank? We're going to assume that it's put in correctly.
You're going to, if you put in a standard septic tank, or I think it's in the...
Just a standard septic
like
tank.
25, I've seen the number, but I can't
25 milligrams
remember.
per liter, you're thinking about? It all depends on how many times you flush your toilet, too, Jim.
How many times you flush your toilet, how many people are living there, it's variations.
And that's-
There's given the same situation, there's 25%, 25 times the amount of nitrogen entering the system with a standard septic tank as opposed to a performance base.
Say that again?
How are you going to accommodate for the people who unplugged that one?
25 times.
25 times or 25%? Because even the BMAP total is only a 65% nitrogen reduction. And that's 25 times is orders of magnitude above 65%.
I think it's...
it can't be 25 times.
Look it up.
25% more, I would have certainly agree and understand that.
So let me clarify while you're looking that up, Chuck. We right now require performance base. And as we talked about earlier, there are other systems, passive systems, that are allowed under the BMAP program that have to qualify as nitrogen-reducing systems. Those would be prohibited under our current ordinance. The one that Randy is proposing to get rid of, we wouldn't be able to do that. If someone has a good nitrogen-reducing system that doesn't meet the requirements.
I'm not opposed to changing the comp plan to allow a good nitrogen-reducing system. I can agree to that. I just can't agree to just making it so that we can put standard septic tanks on everything that's
Hang
1
on,
acre
sir.
or larger.
We've already given you your time.
I think we're all agreeing
This is not going to be
basically.
decided tonight, so I don't mean to be disrespectful to you, but it's not going to be decided tonight, so.
It'll be months, actually.
I think our conversation basically is that we pretty much all agree that to use a nitrogen reducing, the big problem is to require everybody to use a performance base.
That and the lot size.
Which I don't think the performance base ever even met the requirements that it was initially
No,
intended to.
probably not.
It fell short.
It's a fallacy. You're not going to meet 10 milligrams per liter.
Basically, everybody I've ever talked to unplugged them.
Yeah.
Well,
Mr. Chairman,
regardless of that.
Well, if they unplug them, then they just don't care about our Wakulla Springs, and that's just,
They care about the $30 a month.
they care more
Win-
about their money than
Win, lose, or draw,
Springs.
that's human nature.
Well,
You can't
yeah,
fight.
well, this is your poop, you need to clean it up, okay? And so that's your responsibility as a citizen of our community, is to clean up your excrement, okay?
We're talking about, we're on the same page, we're just not gonna do performance-based. But, reducing nitrogen, I think we all agree to.
My whole position is there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me on that BMAP group that came back, they did do the math, they said, here's what we're gonna make you do. Now remember, they added a lot more area. It's pretty much all of our developable property. And then the physical land size may not be huge, but it's all of the south of Crawfordville areas. And we're already enforcing new subdivisions to put central sewer in. We're not wanting to add a ton of septic tanks. I love Wakulla Springs too. I grew up here my whole life. So I don't want to go ruin Wakulla Springs. But to me, this is what they recommend to do to help save the springs. That's what we should do. Now, do we want to make our roads as safe as possible? Let's go reduce all the speed limit to 10 miles an hour on every county road. They'd be a lot safer, but we're not going to do that.
Mr. David, I have a question. When we get our sewer system up Spring Creek Highway, maybe pick up this one from over on St. Mark Road or whatever,
River Plantation.
what
When you're rid of that spray.
we'll be able to serve with sewer about what, 90% of the county?
Of the developable area of the county, we'll probably be serving, I'd say about 50% out, maybe,
Yeah,
something along those lines.
but that's going to pick up a lot of the development.
We're making a big chunk right now. We're almost bumping about 500, 600 houses we've taken off of septic
And we're going to
system this year.
continue to hit the Water Management District up for funding, by the way.
Yeah,
Right,
and we've got a commitment of funding to the tune of almost $40 million.
And we've spent millions
7
upgrading
years.
our sewer plant to be able to accommodate all these new
That's right.
hookups too.
That's right. So we're pushing sewer everywhere we can, yes.
Well, you're taking them off and you're putting sewer in to put them on. So we're doing a lot of stuff. But I just can't see.
Got a long way to go, but
Mike's
yeah.
been patiently waiting.
Make sure I understand, when does the state's new,
I'm glad you said that. I want to amend my motion that we will not do final adoption of this until the BMAP is in place. It was supposed to go in place July 1st. It's been delayed, implementation's been delayed 6 months.
okay, let me finish my point. I understand now, but what I was trying to get to was, we can't override states. We can't make it more stringent, can we?
Yes.
Yes.
We can. Okay. Well,
It is more stringent now.
it is. And I hear Chuck's argument and these folks that are saying it's going, we're adding 5 times.
25 times.
Well,
I still don't think that's
I
right.
don't know if that's right.
8.73 pounds per standard septic tank and 0.35 pounds for,
Well, let me ask you this, Randy. How many people have come to you and complained about the 5 acre being an issue? I mean, have you had a lot of public say that's
I mean, not everybody's going to call me about it. I've had several call me about it. But even that's not the point, though, Mike. The point is, the state did the research.
You're right,
They
you're
came
right.
back and they said, this is what it should be.
Yeah, but the state's research says we have to take 12,000 off the system, and now you're adding more to the system. That means that's more that we have to take off.
I called the BMAP administrator and asked, I said, hey, here's what I'm wanting to do. And she said, I certainly understand that you want your comp plan to jive with the BMAP. She called me back a couple of days later. She said, we talked to staff. We did not take into account your performance-based system.
They assumed we were all just 1
They
acre.
assumed we were all just septic tanks.
Right.
She said, it's not going to affect our BMAP. I understand how you want everything to be consistent. So I talked to, and did Melissa ever talk to the BMAP administrator today?
It's not going to affect the BMAP, but it is going to affect the number of septic tanks we have to get off the system because you're adding septic tanks to the system. So that's money that the county or the state is going to have to spend within the next 20 years to clean up Wakulla Springs.
Okay.
So you're adding money to that cost.
You're right. The ones that are larger than 1 acre but smaller than 5 that are in the Wakulla Springs protection area. I don't know how many that is.
I don't either, but I'm sure that if I was a developer and I had a 100 acre parcel and I can get it rezoned to a 2 acre parcels or a 5 acre. Right now he's going to go to 5 acres so he can put in the standard septic.
They don't cost performance base you can put in for $5,500, $6,500. They're not that much more expensive than a standard one. And I've built houses with them before. I know how much they cost. I'm not pulling that out of my butt. So, no, they're not going to reduce 5 acre lots down to 2 acre lots or not do that because they're going to miss saving $2,000 or $3,000. And remember also, you understand what I'm saying?
If I go down to 1 acre, okay, I'm going to add.
You got to be on sewer.
Well, no, if I go down just over 2 acre lots, okay, I can put 3 more houses out there, 2.5 more houses out there, okay? If I'm a developer, I'm going to do that.
Right.
Okay? And right now, if I have to go through rezoning it to a different residential, because most of this is in agricultural land, and then I have to replat it down to what it is. Right now, you won't have any objection to the 5 acre plats, because that's what's okay in agriculture. But down the road, it's much more valuable for him to turn it into a rural or the residential and go to 2 acre parcels.
Well, it sounds to me like you're trying to use the septic rule as a planning tool for density.
I'm trying to protect Wakulla Springs. Okay, okay, that's my goal. Okay,
Ryan,
and
Chuck, don't you
everybody's
think
goal.
that's all our goals? I mean, do you think my goal is to destroy Wakulla Springs? No, it's not.
One of the things that I've been bringing up forever, and it doesn't make a lot of difference, but Wakulla County is only contributing 6% or maybe less today of the nitrogen to Wakulla Springs. I was told that by a public health official, that Wakulla County only contributes 6% of the nitrogen going into Wakulla Springs.
I think it may even be less. I think
It's probably less as we're pulling them off. So we're beating the horse pretty bad, and I don't want to punish the folks in Wakulla County because of somebody else's nitrogen.
Okay, Wakulla County, I'm pretty sure contributes more than that. Okay, unless you're looking at the total picture, but there's a whole lot of things that you have no control over. Atmospheric nitrogen and its deposition, you don't have any control over that. That's going to happen no matter what.
Well, then
You
basically,
can't include those numbers. You have to include the amount that we have control over, and the only ones we have control over are sewage.
it's still only 6%. It's still only 6%.
But you're talking about where you have ability to control it. Okay, this is talking about the amount that's going to clean up Wakulla Springs or the amount that isn't.
We're going to spend $100 million
Exactly
probably,
what the BMAP determined.
probably putting sewer up Spring Hill.
And that's why the BMAP has concluded that we need to take 12,000 septic tanks on South Leon and North Wakulla off the system.
Agreed.
If you add more onto the system, you got to pay for it.
All right, Chuck, but the BMAP also concluded that performance-based systems should be required on lots less than 1 acre in the spring special consideration areas, right? If you accept the previous conclusion, why can't you accept the conclusion about the lot size?
Well, but the BMAP's assuming that down the road, you're going to take that system back off. And what I'm saying is that financially, for us to be fiscally responsible, we shouldn't be incurring that debt for 20 years from now. And that's my problem.
Here's what we need. We're talking a lot of emotion up here tonight. We're talking about We got to save the springs. We got to protect it. But we're not talking about any data. We're not talking about any facts. Here's what we need. We need to know how many systems between 1 acre and 5 acres are coming off if we approve Randy's proposal. And I asked staff for this today, and I asked a few people with the Springs Alliance that emailed me today, how many are coming off and how many are going on as a result of the 1 acre and below. That's the number. That's one piece of data that we need.
It's 10 to 1. Because right now, one more point, I'm sorry. Right now, and this happens all the time, if you're in grinders or whatever, people are building on a double lot just to get a performance base, get away from performance base, okay?
Right.
They're building on 2 lots just so they don't have to do a performance base. Now, that incentive is fixing to go away because now you can't build on 2 lots. You still got to do performance base. So they're going to go back and build on 1 lot.
Yeah.
So actually, this is going to increase growth, and it's going to increase.
Yeah, but grinders, well, Magnolia Gardens, Wakulla Gardens were going to put on sewer, so those.
It has to be within 5 years, though, and not all of Wakulla Magnolia Gardens are scheduled to be on sewer in 5 years. And there's plenty of other lots, that aren't available on sewer that before could have used a regular septic tank, now they cannot. So there's a bunch being taken out of the system, too.
And I'm not sure that the BMAP folks even looked at that information, okay? Because that's not standard. They're looking more at the whole basin, and they wouldn't look for the special things for small areas like that.
I tell you what, they did look at, that was a source of nitrogen. And it's been several years since I've seen a chart, but the last chart that I saw, it showed the bulk of the nitrogen going in that springs comes from South Leon County. The next largest category was atmospherics, and then behind that was Wakulla County septic tanks. We need to know what those numbers are. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the number was 0.7% actually came from Wakulla septic tanks. I may be wrong, and I've been looking for that. I saw the document, and I'm sure the BMAP folks can provide that to us, and that should be an easy thing because, we got a solution. We need to have a problem that solution is solving. So we need to know that source of that nitrogen.
I just want to make sure when we look at that number, we're looking at that number of how much is something we can control. Because atmospheric deposition, we can't control. That's going to happen no matter what, okay?
But do you agree if in that number that Wakulla is contributing maybe 20%, but if you agree it's below 1%, then really we're arguing about nothing.
Less than 1% of Wakulla Springs, and this is a moot
It's like spitting in the ocean and thinking we're causing sea level rise.
Right.
It's just not. We need to know what those numbers are before we make a decision that's not emotion based.
But that's just.
Well, and I'm admitting that I don't know what the latest numbers are, but before we finalize this, we need to know what those numbers are.
I agree. That's a good point. I'd like to see the data. I'm just curious to see how many 5-acre tracts are going to be affected.
I think we need to have someone as part of the BMAP program come and give us a presentation and show us how we're the offending party, and we may be. And I'm not trying to say we're innocent. We have septic tanks, but we need to know what the numbers are instead of just let's save Wakulla Springs and the baby seals and the planet. We need to know what the data is.
According to BMAP, on-site treatment disposal systems make up 35% of the estimated nitrogen loading into the groundwater.
Is that in
Leon and
But
Wakulla?
that's right.
We need to be able to divide that over what we have.
Well, and you could do an extrapolation and get to that.
If you take 35% then, and then we take 96% of that's going to Tallahassee, it really takes us way down.
I think the ones that load into us are the one only South Leon County, not the rest. Most of the city is on sewer, and so that's
well, I don't want to.
It's the same.
Beat this to death. I'd like to go ahead and vote on it, but to me, whatever data everybody wants to look at, I don't care. The BMAP. They've been working on this for years, I guess. This is the conclusion they come up with is what we need to protect the springs. Yes, you could do more. But that goes back to my analogy. If you want to make our roads safe, drop the speed limits to 10 miles an hour.
Can I call a question and take a vote on this?
I'm ready to vote.
Ready to vote?
Well, let's get our motion right, because I think Commissioner Merritt, he made you threw a curveball there, and it was not seconded.
Correspond to when the BMAP will be implemented.
That we don't do, because to do a comp plan amendment, you got to transmit it, so we got 2 or 3 meetings on that, then you got to adopt it, that's another 2 or 3 meetings. So this is a months-long process. Before we officially adopt it, if it does pass, we do not adopt it until the BMAP is officially in place. and being enforced.
And you want to bring the ordinance back after that point for
No.
consideration?
I want to move ahead. There's two phases.
Make it contingent upon,
We got to transmit, then the state has to review our transmittal. If they have any problems with it at that time, they'll say, no, we don't agree with this, then we'll probably just drop it. After it comes back from comments from the states, then we got to go back through the planning commission, TRC,
After it comes back from the state, it has one hearing before the board for adoption.
but it goes before the planning commission too, right?
Not for the adoption
Not-
hearing,
okay,
only
I'm
the
sorry.
transmittal.
So then we have another board meeting. So we don't have it on that meeting to be passed. We don't even schedule it on the final meeting until the BMAP is in effect. So in other words, if it's in a process where it's being, implementation is being withheld, don't schedule the final adoption.
Understood.
and who seconded that? I lost
Mike-
track.
Jared did.
Yeah,
All right.
you want to modify your second to match his motion?
Yes, I do.
Now we're good. You
Okay.
good?
Yes,
Okay.
you're good. Any
Okay.
further discussion?
I'm gonna vote for it tonight to move ahead, but I wanna see the data,
Me too. Me
before
too.
I get to the end vote. I mean, it'd be interesting to know what it's gonna affect.
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
And please, when you're looking at data, look at how many it's taken out the possibility of having a septic.
Well, and also, in going through this process, you need to make sure you read the BMAP, what was put out by the BMAP process. And one of the key things in here is the total TDM, the TMDL. What they're going to measure is the average nitrate target is 35.35 milligrams per liter nitrogen at the vent at the Wakulla Springs. So down through this 20-year process, if whatever we're doing is not working today,
They're going to change it.
they're going to change it.
They're
Because if
gonna
that
have more.
spikes, then understand,
they-
so what this is going to be a moving thing.
That's a good point. The state could come back 2 years from now and saying, all right, this isn't working as good as we thought. Everything under 5 acres now has to have a performance base.
I specifically asked that question when I was with Small County Coalition and DEP and Department of Agriculture, and the answer was yes. We could move it up to 2 acres, 5 acres, whatever is needed. But
Whatever's needed.
They're gonna measure it, look at the performance, and see if that needs to be
We don't have a
changed.
choice in that matter, which is simply why I'm saying let's default
Yeah,
to
but
state
if
rule.
we keep adding septic tanks, we keep adding more into the
Chuck,
system.
you don't
we
talk
never
about
get that.
the ones we're subtracting though with the BMAP.
Well, as long as we're only adding as many as we're subtracting, we're okay.
I'll bet
We've
you
taken out more than,
$100.
this year, we've taken out more than we've added.
I'll bet you $100 that the number of parcels that getting added by this BMAP are going to greatly offset the number that are being.
Again, I call the question for vote.
We still have to take $12,000.
All right, further discussion? Hear none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4 to
We haven't
1.
had a good item in a long time, have we, Chuck?
No, we're gonna have, this one's gonna last a while, isn't it?
All right, that ends our
Get
commissioner
newspapers
agenda
on Friday.
items. County attorney,
Kind of slow.
county administrator.
That's enough.
Citizens to be heard? All right. Mr. Eugene Watkins.
Eugene Watkins, 35 Rough Cut Road. Well, during all that discussion, y'all brought up some interesting things, so I wanted to address a few. I know Jerry and Ralph, we've talked about some things before. Jerry, I'll use your number. You say we contribute like 6% of the nitrates to Wakulla Springs. I'll take your word for that, but what I want y'all to look out for is how much are we going to contribute 20 years from now? When we add 20,000 more homes, you know, Leon County, I forget the number that was put out, is contributing, what was it, 30, 40%, whatever. I'm sure 30, 40 years ago, Leon County wasn't contributing maybe 6%. You got to look, not today what we're contributing, what we're going to contribute 20 years from now when we got 30,000 more homes or better in this county. And then question for Randy is, you said, and you can correct me on this, how much is it for the performance-based?
We were paying about $600 to $6,500.
Okay, $6,500. You put that in a mortgage over 30 years. I haven't done the numbers, but somebody could check it out. We're probably asking them to pay less per month than we're asking the people in Wakulla Gardens and Magnolia Gardens to not hook up, but to pay the monthly fee for the sewer system. You're being unfair to those in the county that are doing their part to protect Wakulla Springs when you give away, you know, normal septic systems to people that it's not going to help out. they're not helping. And that's just something I wanted y'all to
I
consider.
have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you have a performance-based or a nitrogen-reducing system?
I actually thought you would ask that today. So here's a good question. Why aren't we spending, I want one brought in. Why don't we hook up sewer systems?
You know you can get one tomorrow? You can
Do
get a
you know
performance-based
that,
system tomorrow?
do you know as a county commissioner, all of you guys could spend the money to bring sewer out to where you and I live, and we could all get hooked up and do the right thing.
We're spending millions of dollars.
And to make things even more clear, believe me, I'd much rather have us all hook up to a city sewer system where you can have engineers that take care of all that instead of having individuals do it. But you guys aren't willing to pay to have bigger and more sewer brought into where we live, Ralph. There's plenty of homes, there's neighborhoods back there, we could have sewer brought in there.
Now, you just said everybody needs to do their part.
Right. I think we all need to get together. I think it's a better system to have sewer brought in. If you're willing to do that, where these houses are going to go with the regular septic tank, bring in sewer, pay for it. That's what you got to do to protect the environment.
You have a large tract, so you're causing less pollution or less nitrogen than small, more dense areas.
Right.
But the fact remains that a lot of people that want to solve this problem want to solve it with other people's money, and they want someone else to solve it.
And that's what you're doing.
You're sign up and get a permit tomorrow and get your performance septic tank.
And you want to put it on Wakulla County, the people that live in the gardens, and I know that you're putting all the cost on them, so that somebody else doesn't have to have this. It is true, you just ignore it.
It's not true. We're spending $6 million a year to take them off of
the taxpayers' money.
Right.
And
so I'm not putting the burden on them.
You're putting the burden on, they have to pay $50 a month or $40 a month to pay for that system.
They have to.
And then their buddy over here that gets to put in a new system, he doesn't have to pay it. So you're putting the cost on them. They're not taking...
They're doing their part, just like you said. They're doing their part. And most people I've spoken to are glad to take their septic tank out and be on sewer and pay that money.
And I would be too, so I wish you'd start working on it. Make a proposal here to get some sewer brought out Wooden Lake Road.
We're going in circles, but I just wanted to be clear that everyone that is in favor of a nitrogen-reducing system can have one tomorrow.
And I tell you...
Not requiring their neighbor to have one.
And if Randy can get that put in for me for $5,500 and I can mortgage it for 30 years, it'll be cheaper than doing sewer, so.
I know someone that can help you with the mortgage.
There is a system where we could put everybody on a maintenance system and take care of the whole problem. Okay.
Let me just address something.
We do have one more citizen.
Well, just what Eugene just said.
All right.
The initial cost of the system, I don't have a whole lot of heartburn with. That's why I'm saying they don't cost a whole lot more than a standard. The thing that's really getting the people that are on these are the required maintenance contract, the required operating permit. I talked to the guy at the health department, Jason. He said that they're talking to people, and that when you run the numbers, it costs about 6 years to recover your money. If you go rip one of these performance-based systems out and put it in a regular septic tank, it takes you about 6 years to get your money back. And there are a lot of people that have done that once we changed the rule. I know a guy who lived in Meadow on 20 acres. He had to do a performance-based system. As soon as we changed the rule, he took it out and put a regular system in.
So my question is, if it's about the maintenance agreement, how often do they fail? Do they need this intensity maintenance, and can we change
Required by
rules
the
for that?
state.
Well, then maybe we talk to the state about that.
And the operating
Okay.
permit's required by the state. And the power bill, which isn't much. Now, I'll agree with that. It's not that much.
Well, if they're not, I mean,
That's why I support these.
When they first started out and they were failing a lot, maybe we needed state review.
And this is why
That's still the
I
case.
agree with you 100% about the passive systems. The passive systems don't need maintenance agreements. They don't need, operating permits. I have no problem with the passive system, and I have no problem with requiring people to spend extra money to put them in to protect the springs, because they don't require ongoing costs for the next 20 years.
Then why don't we move to that, make that the recommendation, we move to the passive systems.
That's exactly what I'm doing by recommending going to the BMAP. Thank you.
All right. Let's hear from Mr. McGlynn. Come on down, sir.
Sean McGlynn, Wakulla Springs Alliance. I've heard a lot of things up here tonight, and the BMAP is an imperfect document, but it's what we've got. And your rules, some of them are better than the BMAP, and some of them are worse. And as he said the BMAP's rules are going to change. They're going to adapt to the situation, and that's all based on bringing down the nitrates in Wakulla Springs to 0.35 milligrams per liter. And we have a couple of points above that that's coming in there over the limit right now we have to get rid of. And what we can address and what you fix are the septic tanks. That's what we're working on now. And out of the septic tanks, y'all have a lot of septic tanks, and Leon does too. It's more like 60-40, not 6%. And the septic tanks in Leon are going to be taken care of with the Woodville sewer. That's a $64 million project we're working on, and it's starting up with this current level of funding, with a $10 million feasibility engineering study to design it. So those are going to disappear, and you'll be left with your septic tanks. And the more you have, and also the ones in Woodville are not as close to the springs as the ones are here. I mean, you're right over the springs. Everything that comes out of them goes there, and maybe 30% goes from Woodville. So you can't really compare them like that. And what we're trying to do is fix the springs, and you're putting in more things that we know are the problem that we can prevent doing. And it'd be very wise not to change this ordinance and to keep it the way it is. And we're trying to we got the BMAP to fund, the springs money to fund Leon County for a feasibility study for engineering for how it should be sewered. And that RFP is going out right now, $10 million, for a study to tell us exactly how we should do it. We've been asking that Wakulla County get the same thing, and we talked to Tom Frick in the BMAP meetings asking for that, and we talked to the Water Management District. But y'all could use a study, and it could be done quickly, and we could figure out exactly the best way to do this. But Wakulla Springs is so important that we really can't risk it. And septic tanks are the problem, the primary problem that's polluting Wakulla Springs right now. And that's what we're trying to address. You don't need more of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That ends our citizens to be heard. Let's see, discussion items from commissioners.
I just got we're still beating a dead horse. All those maintenance equipments, Randy. It's not that you pay it once, you pay it every year. I have a shopping center in Georgia, and just to check the backflow, the guy comes driving down the road, takes a look over, and he checks the backflow. That costs me $500 a year for 5-10 minutes of looking. And I've never had one to go bad.
You need to find a different backflow.
I'll do it for you for $150.
Well,
they saw you coming, Jerry.
I can't find City Hall. I can't get it changed. David, there's a lot of conversation. Sometimes developers don't pay their way. How much does each developer today pay for sewer permit? What's the cost on a sewer permit today?
That's
Access charge, you mean?
Fee.
Pardon?
the connection fee, the access fee that we have is $3,850.
For
3,000.
single family.
That's for a single-family
Yeah.
house.
So the developer is paying almost $4,000 for every house that he builds,
if he's connecting to
if
our
he's
sewer.
connected to sewer. So
Plus the infrastructure that he's putting in.
plus everything. But I'm just talking about
If he's-
connecting to the sewer. The developer doesn't get a free ride. He's spending $4,000 just to tap onto
I
our
don't think
sewer.
anybody said developers get a free ride connecting to sewer.
Well, that's all I hear all the time.
No, there is
I don't think
absolutely
so.
zero of that.
Yeah.
It's always passed on to the homeowner anyway.
Yeah, it is passed on.
Yeah, and the developer doesn't pay anything.
But the fact that we have it, the homeowner has to pay it. It has to be paid, and just about everything we do up here, the homeowner has to pay. When we approve a tax, or when we add a tax or a fee or whatever, and it may seem like, well, oh, Joe there is paying that fee. Joe is going to pass that fee on to the consumer. It just happens.
Well, that's my argument about this, is that we're passing fees on to our consumers, our citizens. We're going to have to pay down the road to get rid of these septic tanks. That's my argument. So.
I'm through. I passed.
Town plan. We have the 20,000 square foot rule, And, you know, I was never a real big fan of it, but to me, it seems like something we can use effectively to encourage development where we want it and not where we don't want it. And if we take that 20,000 square foot rule and put it inside of any town plan, any overlay we set up, so that those areas, that rule applies, and outside of those areas, it does not. And so it doesn't say they can't build, it just says that they don't get the free, you know, the immediate approval. And if we were someplace we want to see development, you know, like Panacea doesn't have one, we put an overlay on Panacea so it can happen there. If there's some other intersection we want to have development on, we put an overlay on there so they can have it there. So we start directing where the development occurs and not just leave it to
I don't,
random chance.
with all due respect, the developer is going to want to put his building where he wants to put it, not where we decide that you're going to put this Walmart over there, or you're going to put this Sonny's over here, or whatever. We just can't do that. We can't.
I'm not saying he couldn't do whatever he wants to do. I'm saying we can, by using this, we can encourage development where we want it, and not discourage discourage it outside of that area.
I wouldn't support that. Again, that's just using staff policy to dictate zoning. You're saying make it easier if what you're talking about is site plan review if you're 20,000 square feet or less.
Right.
Is done in-house.
It's done in-house.
You want to make
we
it
never
where
see it.
if you're not in the
Mr. Golden's plan tonight, whatever he comes back, we will never see it.
If your logic applies outside the town plan, then it should also apply in the town plan too. If you want to look at the site plan, why wouldn't you want to look at the one in Crawfordville too? If you're not concerned about looking in it, then it's simply a tool for growth.
I would like to look at the site plan, but
you can look at them, you just can't vote on them.
I know, and I would like to have a vote on them, but that option's not on the table. But what I'm trying to say is that if we change the rule such that
I understand exactly what you're saying.
That encourage, and that way they have an incentive, because we don't have many other ways to incentive for them to go into the areas where we want to build a downtown.
Now, let's not forget that all the incentives we put in the Crawfordville Town Plan, Summer, right, about if you provide bicycle facilities, you can reduce your parking, you can do we have tons of incentives for the Crawfordville Town Plan. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think you know my position.
Anything further?
No.
Randy?
I think I've said enough. Motion to adjourn.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for sticking around with us tonight.
Huh?